Step into the world of Tim Burton and Danny Elfman with the San Francisco Symphony. Hear music from Beetlejuice, Batman, Edward Scissorhands, The Nightmare Before Christmas, and more. Performed live by the San Francisco Symphony with stunning visuals. Plus, a special live performance by Danny Elfman himself, November 13th and 14th at Davies Symphony Hall. Don't miss Danny Elfman's music from the films of Tim Burton, November 13th and 14th only. Tickets at sfsymphony.org.
I do have some thoughts on the Broz and Heinen thing. And Kyle Dubas on his show, which, by the way, I still don't like that Kyle Dubas does a bi-weekly show on the Penguins network and doesn't talk to us very often. That gets on. Yeah, professionally speaking, it doesn't serve my business very well. He was, kind of glowing up Danton Heinen, leading scorer in the AHL, really, learning to play center. And I was kind of thinking, great, but the underbelly of his comments were that the Penguins are going for wins right now. You said it was kind of a Mike Sullivan thing. It seems to me that I won't use the word abandon, because obviously at any one day they've got 4 or 5 rookies in the lineup. Yeah. Can't say they're abandoning youth when they've got that many kids, on the ice. But they made a decision based on winning right now versus, what Kyle Dubas said in training camp was, if the young players push all the way through camp, push all the way through preseason, they will make the team, and I'll deal with the, quote, rippling effects. Mm-hmm. With the veterans. Well, he didn't. He didn't deal with those rippling effects, and he called up, again, no disrespect to Danton Heinen, who not at all as a center. He's kind of being shuffled back and forth. Sometimes he's a winger. Sometimes Kevin Hayes is a center. Sometimes Heinen is a center. Sometimes Hayes is. It's they're shuffling their bottom six pretty aggressively, but Broz especially, because I thought he really had a strong training camp. Like he pushed, and I was kind of happy for the kid. He's got silky hands, and he's faster than people think. He's stocky. He doesn't look fast. And then you realize he just covered half the ice in a blink of an eye. And you're like, oh, wow. So, yeah, that was kind of a unique. No, I shouldn't say unique. That was an interesting situation. And I wonder if the Penguins might undo that move after Sweden.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying there's any correlation between Dan Heinen being the guy called up and them not winning the past 2 or 3 games, but you wonder if that infusion of youth would have given this team a different look. I'm not saying there's any correlation, but I do wonder what that would have looked like.
Well, without Ben Kindle leading the third line, they are in desperate need of some offensive push on that line. If there was one thing that kind of stood out in the last couple of games, it was, where did the third line go?
Yeah,
they really didn't contribute or chip in too much, Vince. And it's, so either you put Heinen up with Crosby and put Kindle back on the third line, or you figure out who centers your third line. I mean, look, I guess Ville Koivunen had some glorious scoring chances on Saturday as part of that third line, but those seemed like they popped up. Those were not, I don't know, that wasn't sustained pressure more than a shift or two by that third line.
The last 2 or 3 games, you can't tell where the third line starts and the fourth line ends. They're to me, they're all space fillers right now.
The fourth line was great, but they're not going to play 20 goal pace all season. That was maybe a little over their heads.
Yeah, I guess one thing we have to keep in mind too is the injuries to Raquel and Brazeau are pretty significant as far as changing the makeup of this lineup. The lines were very balanced when those two were in the lineup. And like you said, with Kindle centering that third line, it gave it a very different look than a traditional third line.
It was a top 9, not a top 6.
Exactly. But, those with Broz, the way he started the season, scoring almost every game, it seemed like, and, Raquel is what he is. He plays great on that first line with Crosby. When you take those two out of the lineup, it's hard to replace, and it really changes the whole balance of the lineup when those two are out.
All right. So I think, Ville Koivunen. I did mention him. I had a little, fun might not be the right word, but I like talking to some of these kids, and I maybe kind of poked him a little bit on Friday, because on Thursday night he had a couple of great scoring chances and kind of bent the stick over his knee and looking up to the heavens and going through all of that. And I said, well, is that a good frustration or a bad frustration? Like a good frustration knowing you're close.
Yeah.
And he kind of stopped and rethought about it, because it was kind of obviously getting to be a bad frustration. And listen, I'm no one's therapist, certainly not my job as a media person. But just in talking to him, he kind of needed a little feel good that somebody noticed he's getting these chances. And, he kind of perked up a little bit when I asked that, good frustration question. It's sort of, and he still couldn't get it in New Jersey. Oh, Jake Allen still has no idea how he made the one save. Yeah,
he's right on the verge, and I'm rooting for him because, like you said, from all accounts, he's a great kid and good personality. And again, it's hard when these guys get called up, these young guys, and they get put on a third line and getting 11 minutes a night, and it's hard to go out there and make an impact in that limited amount of time. I mean, you have to remember these young guys, they've been the star of every team they've ever played on up until they get to the NHL level, and they're used to playing 20 minutes a night or more, top power play, things like that. And then they get up to the NHL, and that those opportunities aren't there. So you have to make the most of every shift that you get when you get out there. And a guy that comes to
such an important sentence.
Yeah. A guy that comes to mind for me is Zach Aston-Reese, a former Penguin. He led the country in scoring in college and was a finalist for Player of the Year. And he comes to the NHL, and all of a sudden he's a fourth
liner.
Yeah. And I think that was a tough adjustment for him. Now, good on him. He's carved out a career being a third and fourth line guy, still playing with Columbus, right, to this day. Mm-hmm. But I think that him and dozens of other players have trouble at first making that adjustment from being the guy on every team they've ever played on to being a 10-minute a night role player.
Yeah, Aston-Reese always was such a curious case to me, because the COVID season, he scores 9 goals in 50 games, and you're like, oh, okay, there it is. And then he's so buckled into playing that defensive role that the coaches would literally say to him, hey, try to play with the puck. You're good at it. Stop, giving it up like a hot potato. I digress. No one's here to talk about Zach Aston-Reese, but with Ville Koivunen, I wonder how much more rope he's going to get. I wonder if they might call up a Tristan Broz at the expense of Koivunen, because when he's on it, he's jumping between the dots. He's mixing it up by the net. Mm-hmm. He's playing a really scrappy, aggressive game. What we've seen from him intermittently, perhaps more so than the good game, is the bad game where he's on the perimeter. He actually gets knocked off his skates. I think he needs to get stronger still. He's going to have to spend maybe part of this season or the off season next summer really adding some bulk or some strength, because he gets knocked around probably too much for his own good.
I worry about that with Kindle too, because Kindle is reckless. He goes to the net. He doesn't care. He at one point today, he ended up on top of the goalie.
Yeah.
I mean, yesterday he skated right through the crease in overtime, drove hard to the net. I think he ran into Jake Allen yesterday. And can somebody get that kid a helmet that fits? It looks like every shift he takes, his helmet's going to fall. He's like O'Neal Cruz out there for the Pirates. But he's another guy. He's scrawny. There's no such thing as a scrawny hockey player like we saw in like the 80s or the 90s. But I mean, he's not the biggest guy in the world either, but he's reckless out there in a good way.
Yeah.
Reminds me of Gensel a little bit.
A lot. Yeah. He's willing to go to the net and take it.
Yeah. But like you said, with Koivunen, he's getting knocked around a lot today too. In the game today, he got drilled pretty hard into the boards and actually went off the ice for a little bit, which I think everybody breathed a sigh of relief when he came back out. But yeah, he's going to have to bulk up a little bit too. But imagine, putting some weight on to the game that he already plays, and he'll be a really good player.
Yeah. Well, if they ever need to bulk up, they can always put them on the Dan Kingerski diet.
That'll probably help expedite things.
Yes, I can show them how to gain weight like on one road trip. There's 5 pounds for you. All right, so that takes care of the rookies. Let's talk a bit about Ryan Graves and Connor Clifton and that third pairing, Vince. And I think that we can probably wrap it there. Color me absolutely shocked. I mean, yeah. I had a conversation with Clifton on Thursday or Friday. Honest to God, these days have all just bled together. These road trips, you come home for a day, you're back in the car, you get home for a day, you're back in a plane, and it's...
Step into the world of Tim Burton and Danny Elfman with the San Francisco Symphony. Hear music from Beetlejuice, Batman, Edward Scissorhands, The Nightmare Before Christmas, and more. Performed live by the San Francisco Symphony with stunning visuals. Plus, a special live performance by Danny Elfman himself, November 13th and 14th at Davies Symphony Hall. Don't miss Danny Elfman's music from the films of Tim Burton, November 13th and 14th only. Tickets at sfsymphony.org.
It's been as crazy as I can ever remember it.
Yeah, this has been a real weird start to the season. Come back from California, play one home game, fly to Florida for one game,
right?
Then come back. It's been a really whirlwind first month of the season here.
Yeah, and I'm not smart enough to take a game off.
Yeah.
Clifton was not very good in his two previous games. He was, I kind of remarked to somebody else that he reminded me a lot of later Darius Kasparaitis, where he's trying to make these big hits to sort of get noticed or make an impact, in the process, pulling himself entirely out of position and not defending well. He doesn't have much of an offensive game to offset when he does make a defensive mistake. So it just really was kind of a nightmare for him. He comes in with Ryan Graves. Graves gets called up. It's Graves Clifton. And I don't know your thoughts, Vince. I'm thinking, oh boy, this could be an epic fail. And they've been absolutely great. I mean, Ryan Graves had, 8 shots over 2 games this weekend. He's walking the blue line to find a shooting lane. He's moving the puck. He's skating it out of trouble. And I'm wondering, Kyle Dubas has to just be giggling at his good fortune, because that was his great albatross. That was, Dubas's folly.
Yeah, well, that and the Jari contract.
And the Carlson trade. And yeah, but anyway.
No, the Carlson trade, I still give him credit for. He basically traded all of their bad players for the guy who just won the Norris Trophy. I still don't know how he pulled that off, but I digress.
No, that's I don't disagree. I go back and forth some days. Some days I'm like, ooh. Other days, exactly as you say. But yeah, those couple of moves, and now Ryan Graves looks like a better version of anything we expected when they signed him. It just took a few weeks in Wilkes-Barre, where they cast him as the number one defenseman.
Mm-hmm.
They put him on the top power play. They played him 25 minutes a night. They let him work on things like on the offensive side. You wouldn't think that's what they did down there, but I don't know if it was more of a what the hell? Sure, try it. Or if it was, an intentional strategy, but it worked. I mean, he's mentally.
Yeah, I think it was just the boost of confidence that he needed. And it's funny to say you would get a boost of confidence by getting demoted to the AHL, but like you said, he's playing on the top power play unit. He's playing 25 minutes a night, and he, in his mind, he's like, hey, I can still do this. And, to his credit, he didn't go down there and mope, or he didn't go down there and, just.
Oh, I would have been miserable.
Yeah.
I'd be more like David Kampf, quite frankly.
Yeah. Go from taking charter flights to riding in buses and, all the stuff that goes along with playing in the minors. And, all he did was go down there and work on his game, and he came back up and he's looked good in the short sample size. And that's what I'll caution. I would say it's a short sample size. It's a small sample size.
Yeah.
But so far so good. He does look much more confident this time around than
I don't
he did.
think he can play that well. I guess he's played 3 games. 1 getting his feet wet, and 2 really good games. I don't think you can play that well. There might be a little bit of regression.
Yeah.
But you can't display those skills, and they don't go away. Right? Maybe I suppose if he goes through hard times, to quote Dusty Rhodes, maybe he walks back a few of those skills and forgets he has them or so on. But I don't see that happening. I think like once you discover them again, rediscover them, there's a certain built-in impenetrable confidence that might come from that. Yeah. Like, okay, I've been through it. I got sent down and embarrassed and all of that. And here I am. I just need to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, and it's funny. He played like 80 games last year and had 1 goal, and couldn't buy himself a bounce to save his life last season. He gets called back up against his former team yesterday, and a puck that has no business going in hits about 3 different things and then goes in the net. Maybe his fortune is starting to change a little bit. So we'll see over the next X amount of games if he stays at this level or if he regresses a little bit, but he definitely has a different look of confidence to him this season.
All right, Vince. I appreciate you very much. It's actually been a whole lot more fun talking to somebody else instead of the wall in front of me. I appreciate you doing the podcast with me.
Yeah, anytime. I love talking hockey, and hope we could do it again.
Once again, reminder, Vincent loves talking hockey, not to me. That has been it for No Pucks Given here, episode 38. You can always check out the podcast page on Pittsburgh Hockey Now. If you can get to the top menu bar, go to the podcast page, and the permanent player is right there. Just otherwise subscribe so that you get the automatic downloads. That's how I get paid. So do that on Odyssey and Apple and Amazon or wherever else you can find the show. We always appreciate producer Scott, who has to sift through all of this because I always forget to take notes on what we talked about. And quite frankly, I veer on tangents, and Vince didn't help me in that regard in any way, shape, or form. So Vince, thanks a lot, man. We'll do it again. Wait, am I back next Sunday or not?
I was going to ask you that once we hung up, but we could talk about it right now.
I have no idea where I am next Sunday night. If I'm at home, we'll do the podcast. Otherwise, I guess maybe next week I'm talking to the wall in a hotel. And then we'll do it again in 2 weeks. I don't know. To be determined. Tune in. Find out. Have fun.
Step into the world of Tim Burton and Danny Elfman with the San Francisco Symphony. Hear music from Beetlejuice, Batman, Edward Scissorhands, The Nightmare Before Christmas, and more. Performed live by the San Francisco Symphony with stunning visuals. Plus, a special live performance by Danny Elfman himself, November 13th and 14th at Davies Symphony Hall. Don't miss Danny Elfman's music from the films of Tim Burton, November 13th and 14th only. Tickets at sfsymphony.org.